What is up, guys? We're back for another episode with the Matt Dlugos on Athlete to Athlete. Matt, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I am super excited. I am fired up, and it's because semifinals are officially underway, my man. So for me, this year being a spectator and a commentator, like I'm in the thick of it. Like I feel like a kid in the candy store, and we're only 3 semifinals deep. So I'm certainly excited. And just to kick things off, man, what are your thoughts so far on what you've seen unfold and the athletes punching their tickets to the CrossFit Games?
Man, it's been cool to watch. I try to keep up with them enough to see like what's happening and how people are doing, and like obviously with the 2 workouts, you kind of watch and see what scores are good and what scores aren't. But at the same time, I try not to think about it too much, because the more that I like watch and think about them, the more excited and anxious I get, and I just don't find that that's like the best for my headspace. So. But nonetheless, like I'm fired up. 2 weeks away, I'm just ready to get after it.
And Matt, we're on the topic, so I got to talk about it, man. We know the 2 workouts that every athlete's going to participate in regards to what HQ has given or distributed to the semifinals. We've got the legless rope climb, the 10 rounds for time, and then of course we've got that clean and jerk complex. For you as an athlete, were you excited to see that? Was it something that fired you up, or were you kind of indifferent across the board?
Well, to be honest, like I told my coach Justin, whatever workouts they come out with, it's going to be good. It's going to be fine. Like I've worked a lot on my game since last year, and so they could have given me like, max deficit strict handstand push-up or something like that. Like it would have been fine regardless. But with the legless rope climb workout, I did start licking my chops a little bit. It's going to be a good one. It's going to be a fun one. And then I like the complex too. I think it's like the perfect amount of strength but skill, and like a little bit of conditioning with it, or like strength conditioning with it. So yeah, I think they're good tests. I like them. I don't see any problems with them.
I love it. And I thought that would be your take, man. Listen, for those of you listening and aren't too familiar with who Matt Dlugos is, or if you've never seen him grace the competition floor, he is a long-statured man. He is not vertically challenged, and you can often find him kicking his toes on the ground when they don't prescribe a particular height for the toes to bar rig, right? Or the ring muscle-ups, man. So you are 6'4". Is that accurate?
Mm-hmm. Yep, 6'4".
I love it, man. And tell me what kind of challenges or advantages that presents in a sport like CrossFit.
Advantages, man. I don't know. No, I'm kidding. I think that I try not to think about that stuff too much, because it's like I'll have some advantages when it comes to the machine or when it comes to, like wall balls or something like that. But I try not to think too much about the disadvantages of it, just because like the moment I start making excuses for myself, the moment I start like that's where my barrier is, right? So if I can if I can find a way to not think about that or to not make excuses, I feel like my potential is limitless when it comes to that. And so honestly, it's just something I really don't think about. Like even when I'm going up against like Kari or a girl like Allie, short little ladies, I'm just like, all right, like let's do this thing. Let's see how we can do it.
I love it. And I think that's clearly an important aspect, man. It's like understanding, of course, it can present its advantages, and there's going to be natural disadvantages, but not to give them too much power, right? Because then you're going to find yourself just in a situation and circumstance where the excuses start to pile up, right? Or finding a way out versus finding a way in to be successful in the outcome for any given event. So I respect that, and I completely think that is a great place for you to have your head. You're about to throw down in about 2.5 weeks, roughly 2 weeks or so, at the Granite Games. So you'll be there in Minnesota. Now, have you ever been out that way? Have you been in Minnesota before?
Mm-hmm.
Love it. So it'll be a first time for you. And I think there's a lot clearly to be excited about, but we're still waiting on all the other workouts for you. It's nothing's known other than the 2 that they've given out. Do you prefer to be in that type of situation where, hey, the less we know, the better? Or would you prefer, hey, let's give these things a run through? What kind of athlete are you?
Nah, I would honestly prefer just to show up and then be like, hey, this is the workout you're doing tomorrow. Have fun with it. Just because I think like, you can get into your head a little bit, as far as like on a personal scale, you can get into your head a little bit too much. You can psych yourself out, get really excited or get really down about a workout. And it's one of these things where like, you really, you really only have one chance to do it, right? You got one chance to show your fitness. You have to put a plan together and execute. So, yeah, if they come out 2 days before, that's fine with me. I'm cool with it.
I love it. I was always that type of individual as well, where I would prefer to know as late as possible. I want myself, from an athletic and mental or a psychological standpoint, to have to figure it out, and I want the rest of the competitors to be in the same boat versus just practice, rinse and repeat, practice, rinse and repeat. I get so tired of that when they would release these regional workouts back in the day, weeks and weeks ahead of time, and I'd be like, oh no, here we go, because you got no choice but to give them dry runs, right? Now, to what degree, and if you're going to give the full rundown, that's up to you. But it's like, man, that was something that would stress me out often. Now, real quick before we advance, Matt, I'm getting some feed. We're golden.
Okay, cool.
All right, brother. So let's kick it. You're good. So let's kick this back a little bit. I want to touch on where you're from and how you got into CrossFit to begin with, man. So tell us a little bit about the origin story of Matt Dlugos.
Yeah, so I'm from Morgantown, West Virginia. That's where WVU is at. So I grew up there, lived there my whole life. I didn't get into CrossFit until I got to college, and I got into it from my mom. She was the one who, like, I went through high school playing all the sports. Like, I played basketball, I played golf, I ran track and cross country, and then got to college and like didn't really have an outlet for anything, for any kind of fitness, and started to get a little lazy, a little overweight, like just all the classic college things. And she was like, oh, well, why don't you try CrossFit? Like, why don't you try coming in? Like you don't even have to come into a class, like just come in with this coach. And I was like, okay, sure. And went in with him for a couple times. Finally, he made me do like a legit CrossFit workout with some kettlebell swings and burpees. Almost died on the floor, like almost threw up, but that was kind of like my Kool-Aid moment. And so after that, I just started doing it as like a way to stay fit and just kind of like hang out with people and be social. And then, then now we're here. Now we're out in Las Vegas, and I've traveled the world for it. So it's really cool, and I'm just looking forward to like seeing what else can come from it.
Yeah, so I mean, I gotta wonder though, where was this moment for you when you were like, okay, hey, I enjoy this. This is cool. It's keeping me in great shape. Hey, got the muscles growing. It's fantastic. But what you're pursuing now is a whole different element of focus and tenacity and intensity. I mean, when I'm describing it to my gym members, right, I'm like, hey, you guys are here for wellness and to increase the quality of your life. To some of my members, it's to simply remain independent as long as they can. But for us that choose to take the floor to compete, we're essentially pursuing human dominance, right? Like, we literally want to be able to express our physical will over the rest of the field, no matter what their goals are, no matter what they want to do. We want to step in and take one of those 5 spots, or we want to get on top of that podium. So when was that moment for you mentally, and when did you realize it could become a reality?
That's a great question. So I competed with a team for 2 years, and that was back whenever we had the team of 6 and then back to the team of 4, or down to the team of 4. So I did that, and then from there, after that year, they went away with regionals, and then there was like not really anybody else at my gym that was doing it. And there was like a couple competitions coming up, and I was just like, yeah, like let's see if I can qualify for them. Qualified for the MAC in 2019, went and did that. Qualified for another competition in 2020, and then like things kind of shut down. But during that time, I was like, you know what, like this is pretty fun. Like, I enjoy doing it, and I see a lot of potential in myself. I see like that I'm capable of a lot of cool things, and I'm like nowhere close to that max end yet. So really it wasn't until I moved out here to Las Vegas that I was like, yeah, because I was like working a full-time job in a gym. Like, I was doing this stuff on, like, not on the side, but it wasn't my full-time job. And then I moved out here to Las Vegas, and that was kind of like for me, that was like okay, hey, we're pushing everything in. Like, we're going all in with it. We're trying to see what we can do with this thing. And, I feel like I've kind of given myself like a contract, and it's like, hey, you're going to dedicate the next 8 to 10 years of your life doing this thing and trying to see how far you can go. And like, not putting other things on hold, but just like understanding that my physical capabilities will come to an end at some point. But while I have them and while I'm capable of it, like, let's see what I can do. Like, let's see how far we can make it. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Love it. 20. All right. So Matt, you were just diving into the fact that, you kind of had that optimism of, I want to make this competitive. I'm going to make the move. I'm going to actually literally commit the next potentially 8 to 10 years to commit to getting what I can out of myself physically and mentally in this specific sport of CrossFit. But tell me, like, how did you have the bandwidth to be able to make a choice like, yo, here we go, I'm going to Vegas? What did that look like for you?
I looked at a couple of things, and the main driver for me was, could I do this sustainably? Could I make a living and still chase my dream? And that decision was really easy for me. I knew that my job, like working remotely with clients, was something that I could do anywhere. And so I decided that if I was going to do it, I was going to do it now. I had no responsibilities. My family was always going to be back home. They were always going to support me. And yeah, I really I was like, I have nothing to lose. I'm 23, 24 years old. Like, let's go ahead and do it now before life starts to, pile things on top of my plate and it gets too late.
I love it. So that takes a ton of commitment. I think this goes a long way for any competitor, future competitor, dreaming competitor, potential, people that just want to be in a situation like yours. I think it's important for them to identify that it takes a lot of planning, but it also takes a lot of sacrifice and compromise. And I'll never make that sound like it's a bad lifestyle choice, because I made those same types of sacrifices and compromises. And I really don't believe, Matt, that even in your situation, you view it as that, because you have an ultimate goal that you want to achieve. Right. So while it's tough, everybody listening, if you want to have these types of routines, it takes risk and it takes commitment. It does take some sacrifice and compromise. But with that being said, Justin Coulter as your coach, how did that come to become a reality for you? When did you guys actually start working together, and how has that developed over the last, I don't know, couple years?
Yeah, so I met Justin in 2018. I got to go overseas and get to see him coach and see what he was like as a person and kind of make those connections. And then it wasn't until a year later, after the Open that was in October, I was like, man, I'm just not getting better. I need to kind of make a change. And, Justin's the guy. Justin coaches Kari. Justin has done it with Con and all these different teams. And he's just like, he's a stud of a coach. So I reached out to him. I was kind of on the fence because I didn't think he was taking any new athletes. But as soon as I reached out, he was like, yeah, for sure. I see some potential in you. So let's go ahead and do it. And automatically, it was like night and day difference working with him. I went from a 285 snatch to 315. I went from 345 to 365 clean and jerk. All my aerobic numbers got better. All my body weight, like strict handstand push-ups, pull-ups, got better. And what's really cool for me is that Justin makes those connections with people outside of the gym. So obviously he wants to see you succeed in the gym and he wants to see you reach your goals of making it to the games or whatever that is. But he also cares a lot about you as a person, and he cares a lot about your development, as an athlete, as a maturing athlete, learning the things that you need to and not just doing the same, you know, not like physically programming wise doing the same things, but not making the same decisions or not making the same mistakes or not having the
Yep.
same mentality year after year. So it's been so cool getting to work with him, and seeing what he's creating out here in Las Vegas is just so special. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what it can be, in a couple of years from now.
Yeah, I mean, it's refreshing to hear that about him. I've never met Justin specifically, like him and I type of interaction, which I really hope to get him on and chat with him through at some point through the season to get him on and really get to know him a little bit better. But it's refreshing to hear about his type of leadership. I've heard it from multiple people, and you're the second that I've specifically had a discussion with, not just on the podcast, but just in life, about his character with being really. open to connecting on deeper levels that a lot of coach athlete relationships don't get as far as. So I think that's special and that's really awesome. When it comes to the atmosphere down there at Underdogs, you've got, Bethany Shadburne, you've got Kari, you've got Danielle, you've got Kira is there now, right? You've got like so many, you've got all these personalities. You're not the only guy down there, are you?
We have Mitch McClune, who dates Carrie. He made it to semifinals, so he's competing next week at the MAC. And then we have Rafael Duran, who barely missed out on it this year, but he's been dealing with a lot of injuries. So there's the two of us training, but my boy Tola just left me, unfortunately. But I think he's doing all right where he's at.
He's doing okay, man. But and I said that almost as a joke, so it's funny to hear that the ladies strongly outnumber the men there. But talk to me a little bit about the day-to-day training atmosphere and what that is like. I mean, are you guys going in and have the opportunity to train together? Are you in the gym at the same time and then doing a ton of different pieces? Do you come together a couple times a week? What is the dynamic like?
Yeah, usually, obviously, right now it's a little bit different with everybody prepping for their semis, but for the main, portion of the year, we're coming in the mornings. Some people will kind of pair up based on what they have. But there's a solid group of us. Like usually I'll train with somebody like Alex Kazan or Danielle, and we're hitting our mono together, resting, hitting the rest of our session. Like whether it might be a little bit different as far as what our strength and skill work looks like, but we're still hitting those things with each other. And so there's like a level of competition because you're pushing on metcons and you're pushing on monostructural work and different things like that. But at the same time, you're supporting people and you're able to like push them to get better. And, if like, obviously Danielle's like a gold standard right now, she's crushing it. But just like having people to chase after and knowing that there are people that are, good at the things that I'm not good at. And I think that that's going to be something that I'm always going to deal with just as a taller athlete. Like gymnastics, body weight, those things are always going to be difficult for me and a little bit easier maybe for some other people. But being able to like push but not feel like I have to like hate the other person if they beat me. You know what I mean? It's like it's such a constructive environment to be in.
Yeah, I think that's, again, it's one of those things where it's creating advantage for you. I would highly doubt that the environment you found yourself in prior to making the move and then being a part of the Underdogs crew on a day in and day out basis, that you had that similar type of experience, right? And it's so few and far between where you get to surround yourself with people that I'd categorize as dogs in our sport, meaning that they're tenacious. They don't back down. They really want to excel, and by all means necessary, right? From a reality standpoint, they're doing anything they can to create advantage for themselves and for you, even if you find yourself being the chaser and not necessarily the chasee or the leader of the pack. The fruits are obvious. And I think you even shared that with, hey, look at where my numbers are going, my strength numbers, my gymnastics numbers. If those things are trending in the right direction, then you're in the right type of atmosphere. Now, before you got down there, Matt, were you training alone for the most part?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was training in it was like 1,200 square foot gym. It was just like gray walls. It's cold all the time. Well, in Morgantown, you get like hot summers, but then fall and spring and winter, it's just freezing cold. So it was a little tough to continue training. Like I think that stuff was beneficial because you learn about yourself, you learn how to push yourself without needing anybody next to you. But being here has elevated my game so much, and like I don't know that I would ever leave, and I don't know that I would ever go to a place where I'm like training by myself again.
And I would not fault you there, my friend. I mean, I think about even what you just shared, being in, you're back on the East Coast, you're dealing with all the seasons. We don't suffer from it, but we struggle with that at times here, even in Salt Lake City, where we live in a beautiful climate. It's awesome. The snow here is great. So we don't really get too gloomy, but when the temperature drops and our training needs to actually start kicking up in the right direction to prepare for the latter part of the open and quarters and semis, it's sometimes hard to get up, right? Like, physically, you're like, okay, let's flip the switch and let's go get it. But it's like, it feels like it's 40 degrees in the gym. You got to warm up all the joints. You're feeling all the aches and pains, but you find yourself in a warm climate area you are not at altitude the way we are, and then you just feel better, right? It's like this, it's a very real thing when it comes to mentality and attitude. And even on off days, they don't feel so off when you get to train in an environment like that.
Mhm.
And I know that you coach yourself. Talk to me a little bit about your coaching journey and what you're doing and what kind of clients you work with. I know that helps support your journey as an athlete, so it's got to be important to you.
Yeah, it definitely is. I got the opportunity to coach with a gym back home where I was coaching more on like the general prepared fitness side of things
Yeah.
and people that weren't really competitive in fitness. But that kind of opened my eyes to see that like there's a lot of people out there and there's a lot of need for fitness and it doesn't have to be CrossFit. But I really do enjoy coaching CrossFit because I get to like take what I learn and take the things that I know and the things that work for me and apply them to athletes. And like that makes me super happy because like I feel like it's a full circle that comes around where like I learn something, I apply it to an athlete, I see it work for them, and then it's just like, it's very rewarding. It makes me really happy. And like I have an athlete coming up who's doing the master semifinals, and I'm able to take my knowledge. And she's kind of a similar athlete in that she's a little bit taller, stronger, more work output, work capacity type of athlete. And so I'm giving her things that I do on a day-to-day basis or in workouts or in competitions, and she's just like eating them up and putting them into practice and like making them work. And she's like, oh, I've never heard that before, I've never learned that before. And I'm like, that's cool. Like I'm taking what I'm applying, or I'm taking what I know as an athlete and applying it to somebody else, and they're making it work for them. That's such a cool feeling.
It's the best. I spent, I've been coaching CrossFit from 2011 and still into this day, I'm still coaching. Took a little bit of a break when we started our company FNX and everything like that. Of course, when you're running a startup, your time is very finite, but like for me as an athlete, my greatest lessons for myself came from me teaching other people, right? Like I would find myself teaching athletes things down to the detail where I'm like, man, I really should focus on that more myself, or refining a technical development skill like a drill, breaking down the butterfly or the kip or whatever it might be for an athlete, help me fine tune my own abilities. I think that's a huge advantage that a lot of athletes don't get an opportunity to experience at this stage in the game. Back in the back days, right? That's how everybody provided a living for themselves, right? We didn't have sponsors, we didn't have everything. So it was more run of the mill where, yeah, of course, that guy who goes to the games, he's a gym owner because he gets to hang out in the gym all day and he gets to coach people, right? So I think that's a huge thing for you. And I think it's really powerful when you get to use it the right way. Now, I will say I had a couple struggles. I still have these struggles today. And here's what it is this is me as an athlete, and then this might be me as a coach. Right. Like I got two different hats.
Just going to bring that up.
Yeah. I got two different hats, and my mindset and my mentality is completely different. Whereas like my athletes might walk in the gym and watch me doing something like, hey coach, you said not to do that. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm not coach right now. I'm in throwdown mode. So talk to me a little bit about that balance for you.
Yeah, it's tough. I think, I try to be as introspective as I can. And whenever I'm coaching somebody, I'm like, okay, is this something that I would do? Is this something that I would be able to do? Or like, is this just a principle that I follow in my fitness and my training? I find this most times it's like that, but sometimes it's like, do as I say, not as I do. But I'm working to fix that. It's like you said, it's a little bit hard because you just think like, well, I'm an athlete. I got to get the work done, or I got to do it this way. And, I don't have the time to, fix my form or whatever it is. But yeah, it's definitely, it's like a good litmus test, right? It's like, okay, hey, you're saying this to somebody else. Are you doing the same things? Like, are you making sure that you're taking care of the low hanging fruit? Are you making sure that you're holding to your tempos or sticking to your rest times or doing whatever it is? So, yeah.
I love it. And I think that also brings the value to even coaches need coaches. So that's why you get the guidance and the tutelage that you're getting from Justin and the rest of the camp there at Underdog Athletics. I'm sure it's everybody, it takes a village, right? It takes a village. And with that being said, man, training is of course extremely important, but also is recovery. What are some of your favorite recovery protocols that you go through right now? Are you a sauna, an ice tub guy? Are you like, what do you do?
Yeah, man, I love the sauna. So we just moved to a new gym a couple months ago, and they like built this whole little recovery area for us. So we have a sauna that gets up to like 170. We've got a cold tub that gets down to 40 degrees. You know, the sunshine is a huge help for recovery. So just being outside, like I've got a dog, so we go out for walks and we go rollerblading and playing fetch and whatever. But just being outside, being active, walking, like all of those things are really helpful. And then taking the time to stretch, taking the time to mobilize, taking the time to cool down, warm up properly. Seeing body work people. It's so cool. I'm a big UFC fan, and I love watching people fight, and not in a bad way, in like a professional setting. But
Yeah, man.
our old our old gym was right next to the UFC like Performance Institute in the Apex, and I've been able to get in with one of the trainers out there, or like one of the PTs out there, and so like getting some body work done by her has been awesome. And yeah, sleeping, eating. I work with Mike at M2 Nutrition, and that's been a huge help because like I used to not eat as well on rest days, and like throughout, just like through the weekend, like I would finish my training on Saturday, now it's Sunday, but I would like kind of eat like crap the next day, and then feel like crap going into training. And he's really helped me shift my mindset and just helped me shift what I'm doing and the habits that I have on those rest days to be able to like, it's like those aren't days off. Those are the days
Yep.
where you're prepping for the next training day or week or cycle or whatever it is. So making sure that I'm taking those things as serious as I would like a normal training day has been super important.
How do you deal with that? Because that's something that's actually difficult when it comes to having a social life and balancing your life as an elite competitor, your performance, and then also being like, yo, it's summertime. My peeps are about to have me over for a barbecue. It's a Sunday afternoon, right? Most of the crew is going to be kicking back the brewskis, and here I am getting ready for a semifinal. How do you adjust your, like, I mean, yeah, how do you deal with it?
Nah, my people know that I'm going to bring my food to their house when we watch UFC fight nights, or um, yeah, I'm not going to stay out until even like 10, 11 o'clock. Like I said, like I didn't leave my family and I didn't leave my situation, my comfortable situation back home to come out here and like dick around, to be honest with you.
Yep.
I moved out here to chase this dream and make it a reality. Can you still hear me?
Yes, you're good.
Okay, awesome. I didn't move out here to like I said, I didn't move out here to dick around and take days off or take shortcuts or like I didn't come out here to party. I didn't come out here to go to EDC this weekend. Like I came out here to make a dream come true. So to me, it's like it's not that hard of decision making. It's like, is this in line with your goal? Yeah, cool. Let's do it. Is it not? Okay, I don't really have time for that.
I love that, man. Fires me up. Makes my palms sweaty. Makes me want to go to bed
Yeah,
right now. Maybe do
let's
some
do it.
mobility. But seriously though, man, it fires me up, and I'm always refreshed and encouraged when I hear young competitors that are focused this way. I think it's a really beautiful thing for the sport. It's great from a lifestyle perspective for everyone to be able to look at a young man or young lady that's just committed to what they want to do and where they want to go, to the degree that they're willing to live a life unlike everyone else that's around them. I think that's refreshing, and it sets you apart. So good on you, man. It fires me up. And with that being said, as I think back to your last season, you were at the West Coast Classic. You finished, was it 12th?
Mhm.
12th place overall. Talk to me a little bit about that experience, you being out on the semifinal floor, knowing that, hey, you in your mind, you were about to take a top 5 spot. What was the experience like for you last year?
Oh man, that's a great question. It was a humbling experience because I didn't go into it considering the negative outcome. I went in basically only considering that like I'm gonna take a top 5 spot, and there wasn't the reality of like, hey, it might not go the perfect way that you wanted to, so be ready for that and be able to roll with the punches. It was more like I'm gonna crush every event, and I'm gonna take some wins, and I'm gonna take some of this and that, and the reality of the situation is that doesn't always happen. And it's like that quote, everybody has a plan until you get punched in the face. And I got punched in the face on the first workout. Started missing some snatches at 225. And from there, I was like, internally, I was just panicking. I was just lost. And I was like, shoot, that's not how it was supposed to go. What do I do now? Like I just want to get through this weekend. I don't even want to be out here. And so, yeah, it was just a really humbling experience. And like, that's one thing that I've really tried to work on throughout the year, like working with Kari, working with Justin, going through like, it was awesome for me to be able to go to Wadapalooza and see how guys like Colin and James just like stay level headed. Obviously
Yep.
the stakes aren't as high, but just see how they like execute throughout a weekend and what they do and how they're moving through it. That was super helpful working with Kari, going through quarterfinals in the open and stuff like that. Just being able to set out a plan, execute it. If I do bad on a workout, cool, but like 5-10 minutes later, it's out of my head. It's done with. It's over with, and we're on to the next one. So that's really what I'm looking forward to putting into practice at Granite Games. Is like, yes, the physical like execution of workouts is cool, but I'm looking forward to like testing my mental game and seeing like, okay, who knows what these workouts will be, right? It might be workouts that are terrible for me, but like, how am I going to mentally, navigate that weekend? Because like whenever I get to the end of it, if I finish in fifth or if I finish in 25th, if I can get through that weekend and say, okay, I did everything within my power and control, to make this to maximize my potential. Again, I can't be worried about the results. Like the results are what they are. I'll have to go back to the drawing board at the end of it and figure it out. But if I get to the end of the weekend and I finish in 15th and I'm like, well, here was a mental mistake. Here's where I got out of it. Here's where I let this affect the next day, or here's where I let this like get in my head during the workout or whatever. Like those are all things that I can control, right? So yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to. That's what I learned a lot from last year, and that's what I'm looking forward to putting into practice now.
I love it, man. You lumped together two of my questions right there into one, and I appreciate that. It was, again, your head's in the right spot, man. I can exactly remember you guys did a repeat of a 2016 regional workout that I experienced, the snatch slider, and I had a similar outcome where I expected to finish in X time, and I ended up getting time capped at the 265-pound barbell, and it caught me off guard. I expected it to be a heavy hitting workout for me, and it ended up being what left me that year 2 points shy of making it back to the CrossFit Games, and that setback did nothing but fuel my fire for the next 12, 13 months. You know what I mean? And so I see that in you. I see your ability to piece together that it's not a loss, it's a lesson. And that's extremely important, not just for this year, man. It's going to be important for the years to come because we're all going to keep getting punched in the mouth. We're not going to have these flawless runs, right? And so it's really important to understand how you can bounce back. And I'm excited for you because you find yourself in a great situation. We don't yet know the workouts, man, but I'm hoping yours look a lot like those workouts down there at the old Syndicate. A lot of high work capacity. Hey, you just get after it. Maybe some ergs for you, big dog. You know what I mean? You might be a little bit happy about that.
I'd like that.
Yeah, and that's some of the fitness that, of course, entertains me the best. I've never been the tallest, but as a 5'11" guy with long arms, man, it was still my jam when I got to know I could settle into a workout and not be passed just because someone was cycling reps a lot faster than I could potentially cycle them. So
right.
I get it, man. But look, man, I want to thank you so much for hopping on the show. I appreciate it. Appreciate you sharing just a little bit about yourself, man. It's great to get to know where you're from, your background, what led you out there to the Underdog crew, and how you're just shaking and jiving and moving upward in the ranks throughout your career. So I want to wish you the best of luck at the Granite Games. I will be there. Hopefully we get to see each other and dap each other up, man. Best of luck. I know you will make sure that no stone is left unturned. And, the big thing is, man, be all in, right? Every effort. If you can make sure you give every effort between now and then, and you've already been doing that for the last year, you're going to end up in a great spot, dude. So thanks for joining us. As another athlete reps here, or another episode of Athlete to Athlete on Rise and Pod. Thanks for joining us, guys, and we'll see you next time.